friendly to those people a lot of times because I just didn't feel like I should be. But if I want to be a truly friendly person, I need to be friendly to everybody. And I guess where that changed for me, y'all know, like at 17, I went off to Fort Gordon. And one of the things that's interesting, all the guys in here and some of the girls that's been in the military know that when you're walking around post and you come up to somebody, you're supposed to greet those people. You know, if it's a sergeant, you say, "Good morning, Sergeant." Or if it's an officer, you say, "Good morning, Captain," and you salute him. And you're taught to speak to everybody. If they make eye contact with you, you should greet them in some way. And I still do that today. If we make eye contact, I'm going to say something to you. And sometimes it's a little awkward for people because they say, "I don't even know who that guy is." But, we go walking at the Greenway at White House a lot. And Polly gets tickled at me because I say hi to everybody we go by because I've just been programmed to do that. And at least acknowledge their presence and say hello. So we can train ourselves to do that. And I think really when it comes down to making eye contact with people, that's when we definitely ought to do that. So shouldn't that be true for us as Christians as well? When we come in this building, when we're together, we should say hello. We should give them a handshake just like we do coming in the door. But even in here between services and times when we are able to talk to one another, we need to greet and speak with one another. I put down here, maybe we don't say sergeant or sir, but we give them a hello and a handshake, which leads us to the first point in chapter 1 of Brother Johnson's book here, or chapter 3. He says we must pay attention. We talked about attention a while ago. So look at Matthew 26, 36 through 41. Matthew 26, 36 through 41. Then Jesus went with them to a place called Gethsemane, and he said to the disciples, "Sit here while I go over there and pray." And taking with him Peter and the two sons of Zebedee, he began to be sorrowful and troubled. Then he said to them, "My soul is very sorrowful, even to death. Remain here and watch with me." And going a little further, he fell on his face and prayed, saying, "My Father, is it possible, let this cup pass from me? Nevertheless, not as I will, but as you will." And he came to the disciples and found them sleeping. And he said to Peter, "So could you not watch with me 1 hour? Watch and pray that you may not enter into temptation. The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak." So the disciples here, by not paying attention to what's going on, they missed an opportunity to be a comfort to Christ, didn't they? They were, and now, I sort of feel for the disciples in this situation because they probably had a long day. They were probably physically tired, and it may have been challenging for them to stay awake, but they should have gave it their best effort, and it doesn't sound like they did here. It sounds like they just went to sleep, best we can tell from that. And I'm not sure either that they fully comprehended exactly what was about to go down. I think they knew something was up. They knew what was sort of happening, but I don't think they really grasped the magnitude of what was fixing to happen. So, and Jesus had always been able to do miracles and take care of himself and all that kind of thing. So I think probably in their mind they thought, well, whatever happens, he's going to take care of it. So, that would be human thinking, wouldn't it, to think that way? But could it be that sometimes we're guilty of the same type of thing? When we fail to recognize when a brother or sister is in need of attention. It's the same thing, isn't it? And a lot of times, I'll tell you, sometimes it's hard because we are all very busy in our lives, aren't we? And it's difficult to just stop what we're doing sometimes and give the attention we need to a brother or sister in Christ. But when those opportunities arise and we're aware of them, we need to do our best to do that, to show our friendship and to be kind to that person. So let me scroll down here a little bit. Oh, there we go. It jumped the wrong way on me. I put in here too, talking about greeting newcomers to the church. When people come in here, that's one of the things we had talked about doing a better job of ourselves as a church, is making sure we have greeters every week here, people that are at the door. We have people that do that, but we need to all do that at some point, don't we? We need to share that responsibility of greeting people and shaking hands and telling them thanks for coming. But the key to showing our love is giving our attention to people. The book says this. It says, life's best moments are the times when we momentarily lose ourselves in caring for one another. And we talked about that a little bit last week, how when you're doing something like that, you tend to forget your own troubles, don't you? It makes us feel better. Then it goes on to say this. It says, before you can be considerate, you must first become conscious. You got to be aware of what's happening around you. So another passage I want to look at this morning is Matthew 25, 37 through 40. This is Jesus talking. He says, then the righteous will answer him, saying, Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you drink? And when did we see you a stranger and welcome you, or naked and clothe you? And when did we see you sick or in prison or visit you? And the king will answer them, truly, I say to you, as you did it to one of the least of these, my brothers, you did it to me. So Jesus is reminding us to love other people, to love those people that need our help, and to try to give them the help that they need. But we got to pay attention, don't we? I'm sure that there are situations that we don't know about, because some people are real private about things that's going on in their life, aren't they? They don't like to share those things. Others will share whatever you want to know. But some people are real quiet about that. And if we don't have that good relationship with our brothers and sisters, we may not know that they're struggling with something. So that's why it's important to be that friend, or to be friendly in that sense, so that we can identify when there's something not right in that person's life. And at least say, hey, I noticed you've not been yourself lately. Is there anything I can help you with? What's going on? And hopefully they will share that with us, and we will be able to reciprocate with some help in some way. He also made a statement that I thought was interesting. He says, heartlessness is a danger when we spend too much time focused on self and not enough on others. So it's that balancing act, isn't it? We have to have time for ourselves. There's things that we have to do. But sometimes it's hard to balance all that, to find a way to make time for other things. It may mean that we have to give up something that maybe we like to do because it's more important to be there for a brother or sister. And there's a lot of opportunities out there, I think, a lot of times we don't even know about. One thing I have learned in the first couple of weeks of being an elder, there's a lot of stuff going on that I never knew was going on. And there's a lot of things that people need that I was not aware of until I'm in this group of people that's getting that information regularly. So there's a lot of needs. There's a lot of things that we can do to help people. And then we got to adjust ourselves to be able to do that. In Luke 16, 19 through 41, this is the parable of the prodigal son, of the rich man, and Lazarus. But we'll read that. He says, there was a rich man who was clothed in purple and fine linen, who feasted sumptuously every day. And at his gate was laid a poor man named Lazarus, covered with sores, who desired to be fed with what fell from the rich man's table. Moreover, even the dogs came and licked his sores. The poor man died and was carried away by the angels to Abraham's side. The rich man also died and was buried, and in Hades, being in torment, he lifted up his eyes and saw Abraham afar off and Lazarus at his side. He called out, Father Abraham, have mercy on me, and send Lazarus to dip the end of his finger in water and cool my tongue, for I'm in anguish in this fire. But Abraham said, Child, remember that you in your lifetime received good things, and Lazarus in like manner had bad things. But now he is comforted, and you are in anguish. So, again, we said paying attention. What was the situation here with Lazarus and the rich man? It's pretty obvious that the rich man knew who Lazarus was, didn't he? He laid at his gate. I'm sure he knew the needs of Lazarus. He probably passed him on a daily basis going in and out of his place. And never took the time to do something good for him, did he? You know, it says he just begged for the crumbs from his table. And I don't know that he got those. Maybe he did. I don't know. But the man didn't do much to help him at all. He was not paying attention to the needs that was around him. So I think sometimes, I know myself, I'm probably guilty of not seeing what's right in front of me. We need to pay attention. 1 John 3:17 through 18 says, But if anyone has the world's goods and sees his brother in need, yet he closes his heart against him, how does God's love abide in him? Little children, let us not love in word or talk, but in deed and in truth. So, one of our duties as Christians is to be aware of the needs of our brothers, isn't it? Be there to help them. Let us not be guilty of not paying attention to our brothers and sisters especially, and to all those around us, even our neighbors at home, you know, trying to help them. So, any thoughts on that before we move on to the second point about paying attention? Yes, sir. Yeah, I think we all struggle with that at times when we're seeing people that are begging, basically, but yet they don't appear to need what they're begging for. I give you a good example. We was at the White House Walmart the other day, and there was a couple with a child out with a sign sitting beside a really nice minivan. They were dressed very neatly and clean, and they didn't appear to be in need, but yet they were out there begging. And sometimes it's hard to know, isn't it? But I think my thing is I'm never going to be wrong if I help that person, am I? It's not wrong to help them. Sometimes we might feel like we're being taken advantage of, but we're better off for our own sake just to help those people if we feel like they're not, you know, trying to take us or whatever. But I understand what you're saying. Sometimes it's hard to know, isn't it? And there's times I feel guilty because I didn't help somebody like that, but I don't always know the circumstances. So yeah, I think particularly with people we don't know, it's sort of hard to know, isn't it? Because Polly works downtown when she's normally going to work. They're still working from home a lot, but she deals with, you know, panhandlers on the street downtown, and it's the same people that's been there for 10 or 12 years. They don't want to live any other way. That's just how they do their thing. And is it wrong to give them something? No, it's not. You know, but it is hard to feel the need to continue to do that when they're not trying to do anything to do better, if that makes sense. So I'm with you. I struggle with that myself. I know, especially within the church, we definitely need to be helping each other, and we never need to help all those who need help. You know, we have benevolence situations here where we always try to help people. But we also try to connect them with resources to help them get on their feet after we get them some food or we pay a bill for them or whatever it might be. We try to connect them with help for their family or with some counseling or with some help with how to get on their feet financially, those kind of things, so that they can not have to come back and beg again, so they can get on their feet and get going. So I think I like that approach because we're identifying who it is that's really wanting to take what we give them and do better for themselves, if that makes sense. Yes, but we're still being friendly. You know, we're not being ugly about that. We want to help people. Yes, sir.
Fifth of whiskey or something like that with it. A good friend of mine made some suggestions about that. He says, I've told people who were begging on the street, if you'll meet me at Walmart, at McDonald's, I'll buy you a meal. Or at times he would hand out, $5, $10 gift cards to people who were begging on the side of the street. And to him, that felt as if I've got some control over what happens with this money. In other words, I'm fine giving you money to go get food to eat, and I've got some control of it. So if it's a McDonald's gift card versus me handing you $5, $10 out the window of my vehicle. Another friend, he would hand out little packets that he would have pre-made with water and toothpaste and toothbrushes in them. That way he knew what he was giving them was being used for an appropriate purpose, rather than I'm just going to willy-nilly give you money.
Well, and I like that idea. What Johnny's talking about is preparing for those situations. If you know you're going to encounter those people on a regular basis, have something that you can give them, and he's saying that they can't abuse. A small packet of food or some kind of stuff to clean themselves up with or whatever it might be, but have something that you can give them instead of giving them cash. Give them something that they can use. That way we're still doing what we should be doing, but we're thinking ahead and planning ahead. He also mentioned like a gift card that's only good for food, that you could use at McDonald's or some restaurant or something. That way they don't get cash to go in there with. They get something that'll get them food at that place. So I think if we think creatively, we can figure out ways to do that, and those are great ideas. The book also makes the point that we need to greet one another. Greet one another. In Romans 16:16, and prior to that, he says, greet one another with a holy kiss, and all the churches of Christ greet you. But if you read the whole beginning of that chapter before that, all it is a list of greetings to different people. Why do you think Paul wrote all that? What would be the reason to write, greet so-and-so and greet this person and greet that person? Why did he write all that? Right. Number one, to let them know you're important to me, and I know who you are, and I'm writing this to you. It drew their attention, and it made them feel like they were a part of what Paul was writing to them about, right? And the same thing is true here for us as a church. If we're greeting one another regularly, we all feel a part of this group, don't we? It helps us to know that we're on the same level. We're all together in this work that we're doing here at Hillcrest. So we got to greet one another on a regular basis. I got to tell you a little story here because I think it fits here about greeting. But this past week we went to Gatlinburg for a couple days, and we took the truck up to that Anarchista. And by the way, the truck's more scarier than the little chairlift thing. But anyways, we got up to the top, and we were just sitting there looking at the mountains. There's an area up there where you can sit down and relax and just enjoy looking at the mountains. And there was a lot of people around us. But there was a young couple there that was probably in their late 20s, early 30s, and they had a little baby with them that was just old enough to walk. He couldn't really talk. He could make a couple noises when they told him to. But he had the biggest grin of any little kid you ever seen. he was smiling ear to ear, and he was walking around greeting people as we were sitting there. And of course, everybody he went and greeted, they were just smiling ear to ear. He also, we were talking to him. I was just sort of asking him questions and getting him to smile. And then he befriended me, and he started playing peekaboo with me behind this little pole that was over there. That's the power of a smile, isn't it? And the power of that greeting. I don't know that my handshake or my fist pump or something is going to have the power of that little baby's smile, because that was some powerful goodwill he was spreading around, because everybody up there, he had everybody's attention that was sitting around, because he was just so cute and had such a big smile, you couldn't help but feel good by seeing him. But the same idea is true when we greet one another here. We ought to be happy to see one another and be able to encourage one another just through the greeting. Brother Johnson says in the book, sacred work is underway when your soul connects with another soul. It helps us to grow stronger. And we need to do that with everybody, not just within the church. Think about the kind of people. What was the kind of people that Jesus was greeting regularly? He wasn't going out greeting all the rulers and stuff. He greeted everybody, don't get me wrong. But he also greeted a lot of the people that were marginalized in his time, didn't he? During those times, to be a woman would be much more difficult than it is today, because men were totally in control of society, and women were sort of marginalized. But yet Jesus talked to the women, didn't he? He greeted the children. And he also greeted people that were diseased. He greeted people that were disabled, people that were tax collectors and sinners. He greeted everybody, didn't he? So I think we should do the same. I put down here, if we're too busy, lazy, or petty to affirm others, we're not following in the footsteps of Jesus. We need to be able to have that conversation with them. The third point was that timing matters. And he shared a story in the book about a friend of his that was a supervisor of pharmacies for Walgreens. And what they taught their people was, and I seemed like I'd heard this story before, maybe he put it in another one of his books, but he taught them to greet their customers within 15 seconds of arriving in that pharmacy. Now, what would be the purpose of that? Why would that be important?
Let them know you recognize that they come in to do business with you, for one thing, and you can wait on them as soon as you can. I worked for two brothers at a paint store in Italy. Saturdays, people would be stacked up 3 to 4 to 5 deep. But we were taught, no matter who is the very last person to walk in that line, you take time to speak to them and acknowledge them. Because when you've done that, then they're more patient. And they realize that God is in front of them. As soon as you can, you let them be with.
And that's exactly what he wrote in here as the reason they did that. It buys time and it buys understanding from that customer if you acknowledge them and let them know, I'm going to get with you in just a moment. I'm busy right now, but you're important to me. That same principle is true when we see a visitor come in the building, isn't it? If I visit and nobody says anything to me, and I walk out the door and the only person's hand I shake is Brother Johnny's going out the door, I probably don't feel very welcome, do I? I want to be recognized as being somebody that's a visitor, and I need to be acknowledged for that.
Going along with his story, several years ago, we were shopping for new furniture for our living room, and we went into this furniture store, and we found some stuff that we liked, and we wanted to ask some questions. There were, 8 or 10 salespeople on the floor, and I would go up and make eye contact with them and smile in an effort to try and get them to engage me, because I had something I wanted right next to one of the desks of the salespeople on the floor, and not a single person in that store acknowledged me, said hello, or even acted like they wanted to wait on me. Jada and I, we walked out and we said, I don't care if we found a sofa in there that was cheap as dirt. There's no way I'm going to do business in that place anymore, because they didn't even acknowledge that we were even on the planet. And in some ways, to be honest, kind of made me mad, because here I am in your store planning on spending probably a significant amount of money, and you're not even talking to me. How much more do people feel that way in settings where they come into a large church building where they don't know anybody, and sadly sometimes they don't get spoken to by anybody in the congregation. Their thought is, I'm not coming back. Now, I'm not saying that about Hillcrest, because I think we're very friendly, but I am saying I know that I've heard other people report that story to me, that I went into this congregation, nobody acknowledged me, said hello or anything other than maybe the guy who was shaking me out the door. So we've got to be really careful about the very things that you're talking about here, especially when it comes to people who are visiting.
Yeah, and sometimes it's difficult if we're all doing it. If we're all looking for those visitors that come in the door while we're greeting one another. If we're all looking for that, somebody's going to say hello to them and welcome and invite them back. I know sometimes I'll look and I'll see somebody and I'm thinking, let's see, is that a visitor or they've been coming for a while? Y'all know what I'm talking about. I see some smiles. Sometimes you're sort of embarrassed to go say hello because you're afraid maybe they're supposed to be here. That can happen to us, can't it? But if all of us are doing what we're supposed to be doing, then if I don't know, somebody else will know, right? And we'll get that job done if we're all working together on that idea. I put in here, I remember the first time we visited Hillcrest. And I don't have the best memory of things like this, but I remember that day. And I'll tell you the things that I remember about it. I remember walking in and seeing some people I already knew. People that's from the area of the county I live in, from Cross Plains area. I knew some of the people in the building, so that made me feel comfortable right off the bat. All right? I remember the two Swearingen girls coming and asking my children to come sit with them down here. Now, my kids were pretty bashful, and they didn't go, but it was impressive that they came and invited them to come be part of the group. So I remember that. That's being friendly. I noticed how many people were involved in what was going on at the church as I listened to the announcements and I heard the things that were going on. We were looking for somewhere to worship, and I was paying attention to what it was that was happening through the announcements, and I said, man, there's a lot of people involved here. I was impressed with that. And then the other thing that I remember, and you can tell why I remember it, but I remember getting our little gift going out the door, Brother Oran, that you and your wife, I'm assuming, made. And that was very impressive to me, to get my little loaf of banana nut bread, which I love. We got in the car, and I told Paula, I said, what's in the sack? We dug in there and pulled out that little loaf of banana nut bread. Well, it didn't make it long when it got to the house, okay? It was gone pretty quick. But I'll tell you what, we quit looking for somewhere else to worship after that. And it wasn't just the banana nut bread, but that was a big part of it. It was the fact that somebody took the time, now pay attention, took the time to actually make something in advance that was fresh and homemade. I think that was great, and I appreciated that. I really did, because I've never been to visit a church somewhere where they gave me something like that on the way out the door. That was impressive. And again, it said that people here care about the people that are visiting. And so that's just another example of being friendly. So one of the other points he made was also that we need to think small, about things. And I'll use another example here. And I think this is important. We were talking about this before we started class this morning. Different families are different in the way they show their friendliness towards one another. Some families are huggers, and some families aren't huggers. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Y'all been in some homes where that's just not appropriate, but in our home, it's always been, it's particularly with our general family, we're pretty much a hugging bunch. Now, I will say this, and this is important. I think we've all lost some of that over the last 2 years because we were, out of respect for one another, we were trying to care for one another by not being close to one another, and I think we've lost some of that. And we're trying to find it again. But I think that's something we need to be very conscious of, is how do we get back to that point where we feel comfortable with the right person saying, oh, let me give you a hug, or when they need a hug. It's important, especially for people that don't get those hugs anymore, people that are living by themselves and they don't get that physical contact from anybody. I think that's really important. So in an appropriate way, I think we need to give those hugs or that handshake or that pat on the back that we haven't been doing as much of lately, and it's a good time for us to think about how can we start doing that again? How can we give people that need that contact with other people that opportunity to do that? So I think that's a small thing, but I think that's really important. Mm-hmm. Well, I put down, and I won't read the section because we got about 5 minutes left, but we're all familiar with the story of the prodigal son, right? How do you think he felt as he was on his way home to his father? What would his thoughts have been like as he was walking down those dusty roads headed home? Right?
Back and be a servant.
Yeah, I just want to be a servant. Why was he thinking that? Because he had to have felt some guilt, right? He probably felt really bad about what he had done when he come to himself and realized where he was. Sort of the same feeling as someone that maybe walks in the door here that's been away from church for a couple years and they decide they want to come back. Would it not be the same set of feelings? You know, and how did the father treat that son? When he saw him, he didn't just holler at him. What did he do? He ran to him. And when he got there, he embraced him. And then he threw a party for him. Shouldn't that be the same way we treat a brother and sister in Christ that's coming back? Maybe they walk in the door and they're not really sure yet, but because I know they don't feel comfortable at first, do they? It's uncomfortable to walk in the door because you know, man, they're going to say something about me not being here for the last 2 or 3 years. So they're going to ask me a bunch of questions. Did the father do that in the prodigal son? Did he walk up to him and say, where you been all this time? Did you spend all my money? He didn't go down that road, did he? He just was happy to see him. And I think when we think about a lost brother or sister, I think that's how we start too. We let them know that we're happy for them to be here. And we're excited to see them with us. And maybe when they come down here and repent, then we have that party right here, celebrating their return. And we don't ask a lot of questions about what you've been doing, where you at, and all that kind of stuff. Let's welcome them back first. We can deal with those things later when they tell us about it, and we can figure that out. But it's all about how we greet that person, isn't it? And making them feel welcome. So, because I think it's easy to do the other. Paul said in Galatians 6:2, brothers, if anyone is caught in any transgression, you who are spiritual should restore him in a spirit of gentleness. Keep watch on yourself, lest you too be tempted. Bear one another's burdens, and so fulfill the law of Christ. We all have those burdens on us, don't we? We all have those temptations in our life, those things that make it hard for us to live that Christian life every day. And we're no different than that other person that walks in the door. We're all struggling to do what's right. Some of us are better than others at it, but we all got that struggle, don't we? So let's think about ourselves in that sense, and as well as them. So just like that father with the prodigal son. I'll finish with this little statement here. Brother Johnson wrote in the book, he said, censure is unnecessary and detrimental when a person is crushed beneath feelings of guilt. Rebuking the guilt-ridden is like giving a drowning man a drink of water. Most people just want encouragement, don't they? They know what's right. We don't have to tell them that. They know what's right. They just need encouragement to get back on track. So that's the basic idea of today's lesson. Be friendly to those people that walk in our doors. Visitors, brothers and sisters, be friendly and welcoming. And it'll make a big difference for us as a church, and it'll make a big difference for you as an individual. You'll feel better about you, and they'll feel better about themselves. So that's basically it this morning. I had some questions at the end, but we should be getting the buzzer any second now. Next week, we'll be looking at the idea of compassion. What is compassion, and how can we be compassionate as Christians? So thank you for your attention this morning.